Hi guys, good morning. I came across some information yesterday and I felt like doing a video about it because I have a very different angle on that particular topic. Basically, there's a guy called James Watson. He is a scientist, and I think he basically came up with the double helix DNA thing and whatnot. And he was given a Nobel Peace Prize, or the Nobel Prize for something or other, probably for that. Whether it's true or not is another question, we don't know, do we? We're just told that that's how DNA is, or that we have DNA, but who knows, right? Anyway, he was stripped of his award, God, mental, because he basically states that he still believes that the different races have different levels of intelligence, and there's still quite a few people backing him up. There was some guy in Canada, and he came out with this graph, and it shows African people, as in, you know, being very low. In fact, between 70 and 85. Now 70 is very low, it's sort of semi-retarded. Then you get sort of African people and UK African people of African descent. They range slightly higher, anything up to 85. Then you get white Europeans, sort of Americans as well, who have German ancestry or Norwegian or Dutch or whatever. They range up to 100 or slightly over. And then the highest score were the Asian people. Okay, so, and he clearly states that his findings have found that that is basically how it works, give or take a few, right? So I sat there and I was thinking about that, and I thought, well, again, this is very scientific, isn't it? And I don't actually believe that it works like that. Exactly. I'm no scientist, obviously, and I'm not an anthropologist or anything, but one thing I do know very much is that trauma has a massive impact on IQ. Seriously, it does. And if I think about Africa, that country has been, well, it's been used and abused in every imaginable way. It still is today. If you just think about Bill Gates and what he is up to in Africa, these people are basically being used by that arsehole as guinea pigs for vaccinations and all kinds. There's always a hidden hand messing one way or another in the affairs of Africa. Then if you move over to, say, Ireland, and you see all the shit that has been going on there, you look at Oliver Cromwell in the 1600s and what he did in Ireland, which kind of started the whole debacle that has been going on ever since. All the violence, the rabid, asinine influence of the Catholic Church on the psychology of the Irish people is unbelievable. There's a good book, Angela's Ashes, read that, it tells you a hell of a lot, but just do some research into that. Now, they're white people, but the trauma, you know, is inherent in that they don't function as well as, say, the average German person in terms of education, exams, that sort of thing. Why? In my estimate, because, well, they're traumatized. They're really, really traumatized. We're all traumatized. Everybody is, because that is how it works. This is a kind of, well, whatever this is, it's like a concentration camp or like a prison. The way I see it, I look around the world and I see, for example, a country like China and a country like Russia, and I see sort of Europe and the different countries within Europe, and I see, or Africa, the continent of Africa, and I see a series of different camps within the greater camp, and they're all targeted in a different sort of way. So you look at what's happening in China and how the people there are, oh boy, I mean, I come across quite a lot of Chinese people. For some reason there's lots of them in Plymouth, and they are, without a doubt, extremely, what's the word really? They all come across to me as very passive, conformist. They love money. I mean, absolutely love money. They'd sell their own grandmother for money. Money is their god, without a doubt. They don't really seem to care about art or about music or about literature or nature at all. They work all hours, God sends, and they're very conformist. You know, they toe the line. They believe in hard work and family, but not in a good way. Their children are literally expected to be like slaves to their parents. They have children because children will support them in the future, not the other way around. And so there's very little familial love and nourishing in that Chinese sort of family environment. I've noticed this. You look at China with their social credit score and what they're doing to Tibet, what they're doing to the Uyghur people. There's cameras everywhere watching everything you do, facial recognition everywhere. It's a specific set of circumstances, I suppose, created on purpose to see what the powers that be can get away with. Now, I believe the hidden hand, as it were, is behind all of this type of crap. So you go to Germany. Now, before World War One, Germany was a very different place. It was very different. People were, I mean, for God's sake, just think about it. The book press, right? Printing, Germany. They're incredible people. They make some fucking good cars, I tell you that. Heidelberg is an amazing place. The art, music, think about music, Beethoven, Mozart, Bach, lots of beautiful, Brahms's German Requiem is just a piece of art. It's absolutely amazing. So the German people are clearly very creative and intelligent, and they do very well. Then you get World War One, you get World War Two, and all of a sudden German people are sullen. They're very sullen in demeanour. They still are. When I meet German people, there is a sense of sullenness, a sense of dourness about them, a sense of, well, you've just got to do as you're told because, you know, don't question anything, don't just obey the law, just do as you're told. They've lost, apparently, the ability to discriminate and to discern and to awaken because they've been severely traumatized. You go to Russia, where you had this so-called revolution, and it's always the same. It's like, well, we're really oppressed by the Tsar. They were, there's no doubt about it. The whole kind of feudal system, which was in place in Russia, was absolutely appalling. You know, the serfs, and anybody who tried to change that was gotten rid of by the Orthodox Church, because the Orthodox Church has a lot of power in Russia. They oppress women ruthlessly. They oppress gay people ruthlessly. They're also not keen on anybody other than white people, as in people of Cossack, you know, and Viking descent. They don't like the Tatars. They don't like the Mongols. They don't like people of different genetic heritage. They're not keen on them at all. And well, you know, when what was it, Gorbachev came in and he started to, or so it appears, to loosen the noose around their necks, the noose of communism. And we had McDonald's everywhere that nobody could afford to go to. because it was that ludicrously expensive, and people were actually... This is what they do, they're so clever, because people have lived in such overt oppression, and they recognize that people are beginning to chafe under the yoke, so they bring in this fake sense of freedom. They give the, oh look guys, you know, finally we have blue jeans and we have Western music, we have Coca-Cola and McDonald's, that's freedom. Again, in Russia, people don't thrive very well. You go to places as well, like that used to be part of the USSR, like Moldova, which is the poorest country in Europe. I mean, it's appalling, absolutely appalling, and people can't get it together at all. They're not functioning well at all because they're fucking traumatized. And when I say traumatized, I mean heavily programmed and manipulated psychologically and emotionally and physically. So they do not thrive. They may well be very intelligent, but their intelligence cannot rise to the surface, cannot be utilized, because there's a massive barrier of trauma in the way. I think this is the case for Africa, I think this is the case for China in a different way, and I think it's the case in Russia, and I think it's the case with just about lots of people around the world, or over the globe, whatever, over the disc. Bit early, guys. So you go to Finland and Norway, and there people are thriving more because the countries have slowly but surely embraced a different view on education. Hey, let's be more creative, let's allow music into the classrooms and arts, and let's not give the kids any homework. Let's get rid of the Prussian model of education, which states very clearly, obey authority, mindlessly, do as you're told. It's very brutal. It's very brutal, and it's very denigrating, totally manipulative in that sense. So they thrive. They thrive a lot more. You know, in Norway, the prisons are geared towards proper rehabilitation. You know, working towards a holistic view of what crime is and what humanity is and what humanity is capable of through working in nature, working with art, counselling, you know, serving the community, this, that and the other. Different ways of looking at it, you know, more creative, more holistic. You could say, so are they then more intelligent? Well, possibly, but I think it's more to do with the fact that countries that are less heavily targeted thrive more, and so there is more of an upward surge of healing, of creativity. It's the same in my country, or it used to be until the EU came into force, and things are now going down again. You know, people are not doing as well as they were, say, throughout the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. And Dutch people are becoming more and more, well, less and less, I suppose, really, actually, discerning. They're sort of, there's a downward slant because of the EU, which is a nefarious influence in affairs. It's a totalitarian regime, basically, and but it's hiding that quite well. But it's not good. So this stuff about people being, you know, African people being less intelligent and Asian people being the most intelligent, well, I don't see that. I mean, to me, what is intelligence? You got to ask yourself, what is intelligence? Is it the ability to do really well in an exam, to remember what you've been told so well that you can regurgitate it perfectly at an exam, or to be really good at calculus or mathematical equations, that sort of thing? That seems to be what goes for intelligence. I've met a lot of people who are very good at maths, and they always seem a little bit socially inept, as in they lack intuition, they lack creativity. They tend to be the sort of people who like doing as they're told, who don't question the status quo, but who know the square root of 5 or something. It's weird. It's weird. I think we're talking about, like I said, different projects, different camps, targeted a different way to see what will happen. Let's do this to this particular place and let's see what happens to the people. And let's do this to that place and see what happens, and then combine and or take notes and see. It's like a kind of like a laboratory, I think that's really what it is, and that's what they do, and it's the same beings are behind this. Of course, it's not, we don't actually have countries. That's an illusion. They are created things. Borders were created to demarcate these areas. This is that particular experiment, and then you need a passport to leave that zone and to go to zone 2 where a different experiment is being conducted, etc, etc. Sometimes you need a fucking visa, so I do remember seeing this Chinese girl who was some sort of virtuoso pianist, and her music was, the way she played was flawless, without a doubt, it was flawless, but it totally lacked emotion. She did not feel the music. She just didn't feel it. She was playing a piece by Chopin, and it didn't flow. It was perfect, mathematically speaking, but it didn't flow. It had no emotion. And if you think about Japan, this is interesting, they do not like artists in Japan. If you're an artist, either a musician or a painter or a writer, you really are not respected so much for that. Again, it's more about how hard you work. And I mean, people in Japan work all hours God sent. And there is a very rigid, draconian hierarchy in the workplace. In schools as well. There was a school that I watched a documentary about it, where the children were forced to take off all their clothes bar their underwear, and they were in school naked every day. It was a really weird thing. I mean, people are terrified of their children not getting high grades in Japan, because it's all about, well, you need to get this really, really good job. Because if you don't, nobody will respect you and you will get nothing, and everybody will look down on you. They're terrified. So they work all hours God sent. They go into work when they're literally half dead with disease. They still go into work. There's massive suicide rate in Japan because they have this, and again, this is also history. You look into their history and it's all about saving face. They have this in China as well, where you lose face if you lose your job, so you go and kill yourself. You get bad grades in school, you lose face, so you go and kill yourself because, hey, you have no future, you're worthless. It's the same in China. It's appalling. You look at Britain, you look at this country, for example, and, well, back in the day, people seem to have had some sense of rebellion, which was cleverly utilized, but nowadays English people are a race of whiny, passive aggressive people. They don't question anything, they eat utter rubbish for food, and they go to the garage every morning to get their pint of milk and their rubbishy newspapers. They do this every day. I see them walk by every day like little automatons, and they watch the news every day, twice a day, 3 times a day, even though it's exactly the same news and it's all a load of bullshit, but they believe it all and they don't question anything. And more and more people, immigrants, are coming into this country. It's already grossly overpopulated. It's really bad. They're building shitty houses everywhere. And people seem to want the shitty houses and pay an absolute fortune for them, even though they're going to fall apart within 10 years. These houses are so badly built. They don't seem to have a sense of their own rights. They put up with loads of crap in this country that, frankly, they shouldn't be putting up with at all. They get treated like slaves. It's like now when you get sick, you no longer get sick leave from work. You know, now if you get in trouble with the law for whatever reason, rightly or wrongly, you no longer have free representation. They did away with that. They did away with all kinds of courses that you could do, you know, if you felt like it, which, you know, you could get a grant for. They did away with that. They're just getting rid of everything that would stimulate and support people in a creative way. That is all being axed under the banner of, what's the word again, what do they use? Austerity. You know, there was no austerity. They created that, you know, obviously. We know the whole bloody banking scandal, and we also know what they did in Iceland with that. So people are always being targeted. Countries as a whole are being targeted. Continents are being targeted, and it's like a laboratory, basically. You go to Liberia in Africa and you see what's going on there, or the Congo, and you see what's going on there. How exactly would you expect these children to be intelligent, to have a good intellect, to score well at exams? I wouldn't expect them to do that at all. I would expect them to fail miserably because they're heavily traumatized. I mean, really. So I don't really believe that one particular race is more intelligent than another particular race. I think it really very much depends on the individual, regardless of whether they're white or brown or black or yellow, whatever. I really don't believe that. I don't see that. What I do see is that people's intelligence is marred severely by the level of trauma that they A, inherit from their ancestors, and B, inherit from their own life circumstances. You know, epigenetically, that's how it happens, or so they say. So I just wanted to put in my 2 cents with regards to that, because I just think this is utter nonsense. And it cleverly separates us, yet again, divide and conquer. Oh, those people, they're not very intelligent. You're better than them because you're more intelligent. But they are better than you because they're more intelligent than the both of you. You know. It's so clever. It's such a clever ploy. I've met black people that were really super bright and super creative and amazing. And I've met lots of white people who were dumber than a bag of hammers with no creativity and no curiosity. I met one Japanese guy who was really creative, and he was an amazing guitar player, but he left Japan because he said that everywhere he went, he met with blank stares and walls. It was like, you should just get yourself a really good job and climb the ladder of success. You're a failure. Chinese people just seem like the Walking Dead, frankly, and they're very unfriendly as well. They're really unfriendly and unpleasant, but I think there is a reason for that. I'm not going to judge them. I'm not going to say they're bad people, because if I'd grown up in China, I probably would be the same. It's not a nice place to grow up in, and you're afraid every second of the day, and I mean overt fear, right? Rather than covert fear. We all have massive fear, but here we can still walk around knowing, hopefully, that every step we take, our face isn't being biometrically recognized, and we're being watched. And somebody's going, social credits are going down here and social credits are going up here. Sorry, you can't travel today. You know what I mean? It's going that way, but as yet, we're not in that situation. I mean, they're terrified people all the time. I met a guy who was a student, he was from China. They always come over here. They always study business. University of Plymouth, they always do business studies. Every single fucking one of them. This guy was doing business studies, and I asked him why. Well, my family wants me to do it. And I said, well, why do you want to do it? He says, no, I don't want to do it. I don't enjoy it at all. In fact, I absolutely hate it, but I have to do it because my family says I have to do it. And he was miserable. And I said, so what's life like in China? And he said, I wish I never had to go back, but I have to go back because I have to look after my family. I don't want to go back. He told me some things about China, quite frankly, at the time I didn't believe them. That there are camps, labor camps, big labor camps, where people are being kept, organs are being harvested and sold to the Saudis and whatnot on black markets, and there's all kinds of really dark shit going on. At the time I didn't believe that, but now obviously I do, because I've done some research into it. Yeah, it's... people are... You know, we are victims of circumstance until we awaken. You know, until our true self, our soul, stirs within us and says, whoa, stop, hold on a minute, this is all wrong, something is off here, right? And that's where the journey starts. But up to that point, we are simply victims of circumstance and of our environment and of our upbringing and of our DNA, I suppose. If it's, you know, we're talking ancestral inherited patterns. Trauma will create behavior patterns, well, reawaken epigenetically behavior patterns, ways of thinking, ways of acting, ways of feeling in us. And it's never of a positive bent, really, not very often. So, yeah. It's true that some people are very traumatized and yet they still manage to be very creative. They're still gifted, very gifted. It's true, but for a lot of people I find that simply doesn't work that way. Trauma literally makes all of that go, well, it sort of goes comatose within us and we don't function. Humanity isn't functioning very highly because the world would be a very different place if we did. I mean, just looking at Finland, especially Finland, it is doing really quite well. Considering, yeah, I'm not saying it's like wow, you know, but it's really doing quite well in many ways. So, just a bit of creativity and a bit of holistic implementation makes a massive difference. Yeah, education, people, man, oh man. So no, I don't think I agree. Not that I would know, and I can't say that, hey, I could be right, I could be wrong. But to my feeling, you know, to say that black people are less intelligent than white people and white people are less intelligent than Asian people, that doesn't feel right to me at all. That doesn't feel right to me at all. I think it is racist. I think it's asinine. And I think that they just don't understand the human psyche. But then they're scientists, aren't they? And they're basically operating from within a tiny little box, the scientific model, towing the line of the hidden hand, which controls human affairs. You know, and it's very much divide and conquer. Because at the end of the day, if that is how we feel about ourselves as a species, and we are all human beings, last time I checked, then again we're being told that we're just no good, one way or another. And that the only type of intelligence that matters is mathematical intelligence, and that everything else is worthless and pointless. Other words, ergo, creativity or intuitive intelligence, emotional intelligence is neither here nor there. Perfect for the AI revolution, where everybody is like a kind of robot, mathematically orientated, devoid of feeling, devoid of empathy, devoid of compassion. Yeah, bullshit. That's just my 2 cents for today, people. Toodaloo.